is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Handoff middle. First down. Touchdown! And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Good evening, Cougar Nation, Season 2. Cougar Nation, we're taking your phone calls over the next hour talking BYU football as game week is here. 801-575-8255. Load up the phone lines. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you. We're getting ready for BYU and Southern Illinois this Saturday. 6 o'clock kick here on KSL. Extended pregame. It begins at noon with Cougar Sports Saturday. We will have you covered this weekend as the Cougars get ready to kick off the 2024 season. And a new season, there's hope that it'll be better days ahead than what took place last year as the Cougars finished 5-7 in their debut as a Big 12 team.
Glad to be back on board with you, Mitch, and glad to be back on you, most importantly, Cougar Nation, for Season 2, which starts today. And look, I think it's recommended you put this number in your contacts, 801-575-8255. That's how you can call in all season long, sharing your thoughts each and every Monday night at this exact time as we take you through this football season. But first, Mitch, let's break down this opening matchup coming this Saturday against the Salukis of Southern Illinois. How big of a challenge do you think this game will be for the Cougars?
It's going to be a challenge because Southern Illinois is a solid football team, and they're number 11 in the FCS ranks, but still it's an FCS team. BYU is undefeated all time against FCS programs. BYU should have no issue with Southern Illinois. They should win comfortably, but if they perform the way that they did in stretches last year, think about the Sam Houston game a season ago, the opener, things could be a little dicey, but one thing that BYU needs to sort out in this game is the quarterback situation, and head coach Kalani Sitake said he's not ready to name a starter.
Yeah, I think you guys have the depth chart, so we kind of have an idea. We know our plan. We know what we're going to be doing, just not ready to tell everybody our game plan yet.
We do have the depth chart, but there's 20 oars on the depth chart, so it's a little difficult to parse out who's the starter, who's the backup, who's the third string. And that's fine in today's day and age, Mitch. There's a lot of rotations. There's a lot of personnel packages and substitutions. But I don't love this move by BYU to not name a starting quarterback. I get the argument that they've made today, the coaching staff, that there's a competitive advantage to be had. By not naming them, you'll have to prep for both. But ultimately, whoever trots out in that first series, they're going to quickly adjust the game plan to that person, and then you have to go and play football. Personally speaking, I think there's more to be gained from a team perspective, Mitch. When you name a quarterback, you can rally around that guy, but that's not the case for this upcoming game on Saturday.
BYU, their top two quarterbacks are Jake Retzlaff or Gary Bohannon. That's what's on the depth chart this week. And Jake Retzlaff, of course, you know him, Cougar Nation, was starter of 4 games last season, was 0-4 in those contests. Gary Bohannon, you kind of know him too. He's faced BYU twice from his time at Baylor and USF, but now he joins BYU in his final season as a college football quarterback. And, there's been a theme throughout fall camp with both of these quarterbacks that the coaches have maintained consistency that they are going to need both quarterbacks. And Kalani was asked today if he's going to play multiple quarterbacks against the Salukis.
Yeah, I think we're planning to do a lot of different things. We have a lot of options, and the goal is to get the win. So I can't tell you how that's going to go yet right now on Monday, but we know we have an opportunity. We can win with more than just one person at quarterback. We have a number of them that can play and that we can get victories with.
So Kalani believes that they've got multiple quarterbacks that could win games. So we want to ask you, Cougar Nation, who do you want to start at quarterback on Saturday against the Salukis? 801-575-8255. Hit us up and weigh in on who you want to see at quarterback, because this has been a raging debate throughout the entire year. Keaton Slovis was the quarterback last year. He's gone, got cut this weekend with the Colts in the NFL. But now it's either Retzlaff or Bohannon. What way do you go, Matt?
I lean to Jake Retzlaff. I think there's pros and cons to both guys. Gary Bohannon, Mitch, has more experience. He's a bigger quarterback. We saw in fall camp, he's probably a little faster, maybe a little better in the run game. The thing that I really like about Jake, and it's hard to measure this in camp, Mitch, I love the show Hard Knocks on HBO. I've talked about that a lot of times, and I've really enjoyed this season of Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears. And one thing that makes their new starting quarterback so interesting, Caleb Williams, is his ability to improvise. And I do believe that is a strength for Jake Retzlaff. Not everything can be on the script. Not everything is going to go according to plan. Who is a player who, when a play breaks down, can make something happen? I personally believe Jake Retzlaff is a little better in that department, and that's why I want to see him get the first crack at it. By no means, though, Mitch, do I feel comfortably that he is better than Gary Bohannon. Gary might be better, but ultimately I want to see one of these guys prove it in games before I feel like definitively that's the guy who should lead BYU football.
I just don't understand the idea that, what was the point of adding Bohannon if he's not going to win the job? Because if Jake Retzlaff was the guy all along, why do we even bother? Because things are trending towards Jake Retzlaff being the starting QB, quarterback one this Saturday. And, Chase Roberts earlier today, well, he shared his thoughts on the quarterback situation. He knows who that quarterback's going to be coming up this weekend for BYU against the Salukis.
Right now, it's kind of starting to, obviously we're just keeping it down low up until game time. But we've been able to, I guess, kind of figure out over practices and stuff who the guy's going to be, who we can meet with to prepare for the game when it comes game one, who to watch film with a little bit more. So we're obviously we know as receivers, but we're going to keep it down low and up until game time.
What do you make of that commentary?
I respect it. It's fine if you want to pull the gamesmanship card, Mitch. I just don't know if there's much to be gained from it. All right, we got our first call of Cougar Nation season number 2, and this is something I love about Cougar Nation, man. It's a nationwide fan base. We got John from Preston, Idaho. You got questions about this quarterback battle, John?
Yeah, I was wondering if Bohannon was looking like his old self when he was at Baylor. I know that they had an outstanding year the last year he was there. And then also wondering, I didn't see Preston Rex on the depth chart. Just wondering if he's going to see the field, if he's going to get out there and make some plays.
Thanks for the question, John. Gary Bohannon's health, he looks fully healthy. Nothing's holding him back, and that should be the expectation in regards to his shoulder. He suffered that injury in October 2022. He told me a couple weeks back that in May is when he finally felt 100% healthy. And in stretches during fall camp, there were moments where I felt like Bohannon was pulling away, Matt.
Yes.
I thought Bohannon was ready to be named the starting quarterback, and he looked really good, particularly on the ground. But as far as his health, that should not be a hindrance to him. He should be ready to go and be good for BYU. As far as Preston Rex, he's in that nickel back by the fourth-string guy, probably not in the mix right now heading into game week.
We got to take our first break. We'll get to more of your calls on the other side. Glad to have Central Bank on board for Season 2. Central Bank's CB Vault, Help Center for Startups and Entrepreneurs. Visit cbutah.com.
When the midday hunger pangs hit,
KSL's top story this hour.
make Utah's new news your lunch break companion.
Good afternoon, Maria. We do have delays.
Stay updated with in-depth reports on the day's biggest stories and updated weather. Utah's new news with Maria Chaleos. Weekdays noon to 1 on KSL News Radio. How many things affect your life as much as slow traffic and bad weather? Listen tomorrow morning for traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s on KSL News Radio.
You're listening to the season debut of Cougar Nation, Season 2, sponsored by Central Bank. There's multiple ways to interact with the show. Of course, this is a call-in show for you, Cougar Nation, and you can call us at 801-575-8255. You can text us as well. If you don't want to call but you want to get a thought in, we'll get to your texts. 57500. Here's a text, Mitch. 7557. After this, we'll get back to the phone line. So keep calling in your thoughts on who should be the starting quarterback this Saturday. Here's the text. It's the fact that A-Rod hasn't made a decision on the starting quarterback. Is that a sign of indecisiveness from the coordinator?
It very well could be. This is a quarterback race. This is not Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall. This is not, I always point to Jim McMahon, Mark Wilson, an iconic quarterback battle of yesteryear. This is a battle of two guys that have had some good days. They've also had some average days, and they're kind of the same guy in many respects. And Aaron Roderick even said today that the offense doesn't change much between these two quarterbacks. It could be indecisiveness because this is a critical decision, Matt. You get this wrong, and you have to dig into your quarterback depth. Is Aaron Roderick back next year? That's a question. He's on the hot seat going into this year. Last year's offense for BYU was terrible. It was one of the worst in college football, and it's probably the worst in the Big 12. It's got to get better. They've made some changes on the staff with the tight end coach. Kevin Gilbride comes in, offensive line coach TJ Woods, and TJ Woods' role in this offense is huge as the run game coordinator. But Aaron Roderick has got to perform and get this right with the QB unit because I don't subscribe to the thought of playing two quarterbacks all the time. SMU, BYU's week 2 opponent, is doing that right now. I don't like that. You want to go with one guy, give him the job, and let him operate. Hold up, let him cook, as my kids say. Let him cook. So we expect that, Retzlaff's trending to being towards being that starting quarterback because how he closed fall camp, he was impressive.
Yeah. And
it gave you confidence that he can be a new guy, but I do believe there's a little bit of indecisiveness here with Roderick.
Back to the phone line, 801-575-8255. Who do you want to start at quarterback in the opener this Saturday? Thomas from West Haven, who do you want to start at quarterback?
Hey, guys, thanks for having me on. I'm excited for college football, excited for BYU football, but I think I want Retzlaff on. I don't know if I see the benefit of a super senior last year in football. I think we've got to get some long-term plans in play here, and I think Retzlaff, if he's going to come back another season, that would be helpful to get some momentum that way. So that's my opinion.
I agree, Thomas. I think that's goes into the decision because if he has a good year, Mitch, you're rolling back next year. You look at some of the teams that are projected to compete for a national championship. By no means am I saying BYU's with this group of teams, but Texas, Quinn Ewers has been there for a minute. Georgia, they've got Carson Beck. He's been there for a minute. So a lot of these teams that have a lot of success, and I know they're recruiting at a different level. It's not fair to compare BYU with Georgia and Texas, but you have a lot of success when you have returning quarterbacks. Sure. It's hard to just every single year dip into the portal and bring someone in and run it back year after year. That's not ideal. And if Jake ends up being the guy and is good, you got the luxury of saying he could be the guy next year. And you got to wonder if that plays into it too, because you like to have someone like BYU's had in the past where you have Zach for multiple years, you have Jaron for multiple years. In recent time, you've been shuffling that quarterback more than you'd like, and success has not followed.
Jake has improved this season. Is he a completely new quarterback? I don't know about that. He looks better physically. He looks like he's lost a little bit of weight. He looks like he's just a better overall athlete this season. The way he's throwing the football, you can see the impact John Beck has had on him. Gary Bohannon's also worked with John Beck, too, in Provo and in Southern California. But Retzlaff's improved. He's taking care of the football in camp. But the thing is that, Retzlaff had many opportunities last year to just close the door shut on this job and get and win the job. And they didn't win a ball game. They haven't won a ball game since last October. Let's get back out to the phone line. Spencer from St. George. He wants to weigh in on the quarterback battle. Where are you leaning, Spencer, on this quarterback debate?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. I think about all the points that have been made and everything with the battle between the two, where one's ahead of the other, depending on the week you look at and things, and the upside with Jake having another year after this year already available to him. But my take is that he's already been in the system for a year, and if he couldn't separate himself already having that advantage, I personally would go with Bohannon just for the athletics, personally.
Thanks for the call, Spencer. The thing is that, but what's always been interesting to me is that they were on even footing, him and Bohannon, throughout fall camp. Bohannon was not fully healthy until May. So even with a spring football where Bohannon did not look good, me and you, Matt, we came out of spring thinking, geez, Retzlaff's going to easily win this job because Bohannon did not look good at all. He could not complete a deep pass. Looked a lot better in fall camp. I think what's also an issue, Matt, is that this fan base, Cougar Nation, they know what greatness is at the BYU quarterback position. And to be in the stage in the Big 12 where they have been dreaming of this for so many years, and then to finally get here, and you kind of fumbled the bag at quarterback.
Yeah.
You hope it's going to work out with Retzlaff. I know everyone in Cougar Nation is going to be pulling for him, Bohannon, whoever's in those games, they're going to be pulling for him. But this is not Zach Wilson. This is not Jaron Hall. This is not Taysom Hill.
It's not Baylor Romney.
Exactly. That's not even Baylor Romney. You have Baylor Romney last year. You probably go to a bowl.
Right.
It's just, I think that's what's discouraging is this now the new norm for BYU football at the quarterback? Because it didn't matter what your conference situation was, BYU was always churning out a pipeline of studs. Yeah, there's been some dips. There were some stretches in the Bronco era, the Crowan era, even Lavelle, where it wasn't always perfect. But, man, you always felt like there was some big-time stud waiting in the wings. Who's that guy? Is it down the road McKay Hillstead?
Maybe.
Maybe. I like him. He had some deep passes in fall camp that made me think, he's got a pretty big arm. But it's just that's what's kind of, I think, frustrating for Cougar Nation right now is that this is not – BYU football is known for great quarterback play. They are an innovator. They are one of the best in the business when it comes to playing quarterback, and they're nowhere near that. And that's discouraging when you finally got to the stage you've been dreaming of for decades.
The phone line is lighting up. Cougar Nation has thoughts on this quarterback battle, Mitch. And we love your participation here on the season debut of Cougar Nation each and every Monday night throughout the football season. Let's go to Jordan from West Jordan. Who do you want to take that first snap against Southern Illinois?
Hey, how you guys doing? That's a great question. From what I've heard, and you correct me if I'm wrong in what I heard here, but I heard that Bohannon is the more athletic, the better runner, and Jake Retzlaff had a better arm, for the most part, more consistent. I want the guy who can get it to our wide receivers because that's our deepest group on the offense, I would say, and they're probably the most dynamic, so the ones who can probably score the quickest. So I want to be using them, and I want us to be able to get whoever can get them the ball the best. But to be honest, I heard that they're both good, so whoever they choose, I'm just hoping that they choose right.
Hey, I agree with you, Jordan. Passing the ball to me is very important. It's not as important as winning, Mitch. Winning football games is the most important. But BYU has a identity with the way that they've been successful over the decades. They are a pass-first team. When you think of BYU football, you think of great quarterback play, and you think of it through the air. This is not power run or option offense. When you think of great BYU football, you think of great quarterback play who's slinging it all over the field. And I like that too. And to Jordan's point, I also think the wide receivers are the best group on the offense. That's the most talented and deepest group. Get them the football at all costs. And I tend to believe that's Jake Retzlaff that's going to be a little better in the passing game category.
This was BYU offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick today on Coordinator's Corner on the two quarterbacks and the similarities between them.
The main thing is we want to make our opponent have to prepare for both guys. So they're a very good defense. They've defeated a Division I team 2 years in a row. They are a good program. And so it didn't make any sense to just let them know. They've got to prepare for both guys, dig up some film on Gary. They've got 4 games with Jake. So we just wanted to keep that advantage until kickoff.
That was Roderick on not wanting to announce the quarterback, but you can understand his topics. I think it's also a case of this is Southern Illinois. Do you need to hold off against Southern Illinois? Now,
how long does the surprise give you an advantage, though? 2 drives, tops?
I don't know. I don't know what that really gives you. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've got film on Jake Retzlaff. It's not like the wheel is not going to be reinvented. He's still going to be a guy that improvises. He's still going to have that sidearm throw. We'll see. I think it's going to be interesting what happens on Saturday. Southern Illinois also has a quarterback debate as well heading into this matchup. They've got a or listed on their depth chart. News, traffic, and weather. We'll get to more of your phone calls next here on Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you, taking your phone calls up to 7 o'clock as we talk BYU football against Southern Illinois this week.
Following is a presentation of KSL Sports. Hello, Cougar Nation.
Handoff middle. First down. Touchdown. And listen to the Cougar Nation.
Every Monday night, we break down the Cougars' last game and look ahead to next week. Cougar Nation, brought to you by Central Bank. Here's BYU insider Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte on Utah's legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
It's good to be back, everyone. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte. We're holding it down. Season premiere edition, Season 2 of Cougar Nation, where we're taking your phone calls, interacting with you for another week of BYU football. Cougars going to be taking on the Salukis of Southern Illinois from Carbondale, Illinois. I learned in this prep for this game, a Saluki is a dog. I did not. I think I knew that. I've seen the logo.
They have a live Saluki
Yeah.
at their home.
I believe
games.
so. The last time I remember BYU playing Southern Illinois in football or men's basketball was a NIT game back in 2000 when the NIT required they based the next round host on attendance. I was at that game. Bruce Weber was the head coach for the Salukis. BYU had Terrell Lede, but I digress. We're talking BYU and Southern Illinois football this weekend, 6 o'clock kick. We'll get the coverage started at high noon with Cougar Sports Saturday, and we are looking forward to another year of Cougar football every single week on Monday nights, 6 to 7. We're taking your phone calls and your text. And shout out to Texter 1506. He writes, I don't care who the quarterback is. I just want the Cougars to score 76 points to help me celebrate my 76th birthday this Saturday. Hey, happy early birthday to you. And hopefully the Cougars do get that done, Matt, and get 76 points on the board. Because I do think in this game.
Yeah, right. There's no way they get 76 points on the board.
I'm not expecting
That's
that.
not Kalani style.
The highest BYU has ever scored in one of these games against an FCS was 70 against Wagner in 2015.
Different coach.
BYU, they've scored a lot of points the last 4 in these. So in Kalani Sitake, it's not like he's losing these games here, Matt.
I know. I'm just saying. The point I'm trying to make here is Kalani is not a run up to score kind of guy.
But this is the one game where you want a little bit of style points because I think Cougar fans want to see something that shows that's tangible proof that this team is different than last year. And I think a blowout win against a solid FCS team, because I think would make Cougar fans feel pretty good going out of LaVell Stadium on Saturday.
Before we get to the phone line, this season, if you want, you can watch us on YouTube. Live stream here in the studio. Just go to KSL News Radio on YouTube. You'll see the live stream. You can watch us there if you want to see me and Mitch get into some blows when we disagree. So just throwing that out there for the visual medium fans. YouTube here for Season 2. Back to the phone line, though. If this is who I think it is, I think we're in for a real treat. Michael from Texas. Michael, are you the guy who called in last year a couple times? Because we loved you, man.
I am.
There we
Welcome.
go. Let's go. Welcome back, Michael.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so the only thing I really wanted to say was it's an interesting question you guys posed because, to be honest, it's unfair. We haven't had access to these guys. We don't know what they look like. You guys are the only ones that know whether Jake Retzlaff or Gary Bohannon should be starting. So, yeah, I just don't think we know. I do find it funny because, as you guys know, I did not grow up a BYU fan. I find it very funny how BYU fans are absolutely obsessed with their quarterbacks. It reminds me of I once had some cats that I couldn't get away from my trash can, and so I'd use a laser pointer to try to get them away, and they would become obsessed with the light, but they wouldn't know where the light was coming from. It was like a distraction. That's kind of how I feel like the quarterbacks are for BYU. Like, the quarterbacks are the least of our worries. I know, like, Keaton Slovis, like, he didn't perform great for us last year according to our standards, but he was just on an NFL team. I know he just got cut, but quarterback's one of the least of my worries on the team. I'm much more worried, like, hey, is our left tackle going to hold up? Is our offensive line going to be better? Can we stop the run? Those are, like, the biggest concerns I have. I think as far as quarterbacks, like, I saw Jake Retzlaff move the ball. He dropped it a few times, but can he clean that up? I know I've seen Gary Bohannon move the ball. I don't think moving the ball is the question. I think the question more is, can we run the ball? Can we stop the run? I think quarterback for me is a secondary concern to some of the other issues that I think make a BYU football team good in this day and age. So,
Michael from Texas, always bringing the heat. We appreciate you. Great stuff there. It's a fair point. I mean, BYU's offensive line was a mess last year, and I'm bringing it up, Matt. I always reference it. They whiffed at times last year, and
they whiffed.
It was a nasty whiff. It was not good. When they line up, they mean business, and left to right, you're going to probably go Caleb Etienne at left tackle, left guard Waylon Lapuaho, center Connor Pay, right guard it's either Sonny Makassini or Austin Leausa from Southern Utah, and then right tackle Braden Keim. I think that starting five is good. Second unit, though, it's light. So BYU better stay healthy, and they better be good on that offensive line to protect for the quarterback.
It's a great point. Ultimately, you need to have better line play if you want any of these guys to succeed. If there's no time to throw the ball, it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. If there's no holes to run through, it doesn't matter if LJ is fully healthy or not. It's going to be hard to run the football. We got another text, 1341. Roderick's response about keeping the quarterback choice a secret is being strategic is a bunch of psychobabble, Mitch. How many of the top 20 teams are afraid to let people know who their starting quarterback is? If you're good, you don't need to hide it.
I agree. I mean, when you got Jaron Hall, hey, we're going to announce it from the mountaintops. He's our starter. Zach Wilson, even though Roderick noted that there were emails that he was getting, hey, don't start Zach, he ultimately announced Zach was the starter. When you got something that's good, you want to boldly, proudly say, this is our guy. And I really do believe BYU wanted to do that in this. But again, this race, I do understand from the coach's perspective because we saw it in the media observation windows. Some really good days from Jake, some mediocre days from Jake, some great days from Gary, some really not good days from Gary. So I can see where they're coming from. There's no blue chip quarterback here. And this is a league too, Matt, where they've got great quarterback play this year. The Big 12, massive upgrade in quarterbacks this year with the addition of the four corner schools. So BYU's got to get this right and find a little bit of consistency with one or, dare I say, two. It sounds crazy to say, but they got to just get some answers from that quarterback spot because to me, you can't just say offensive line, that's the only thing that can be good for BYU. I just feel like you got to have a good quarterback to get to 6 wins, to get to a postseason bowl game. And that's got to be the minimum expectation for this team this year is you got to get to 6.
I think either one of those guys can get you to 6, though. And
it's a tough schedule, Matt.
It is a tough schedule. However, I do take comfort in the fact that there's a lot of hard games at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. That's where you need Cougar Nation, who, by the way, Cougar Nation has showed up for the season debut. Love the calls, love the engagement. You guys are the best. They need to do that tenfold at Lavelle Edwards Stadium this fall to get an upset or two against really difficult, entertaining home schedule. Mitch, we'll get to that a little bit in the final segment as we kind of give our season win-loss record predictions before things get underway later this week. Let's get back out to the phone line, though, Mitch. This show it's called Cougar Nation for a reason. 801-575-8255. Our dear friend Linda. Linda, who should the starting quarterback be?
Jake.
Jake. Why Jake?
I think he needs another year because he's a senior, and then he'll be a senior, and I think that'll be good that he gets another chance.
Thanks, Linda. Appreciate it. And I think it's a point worth bringing up here is that Jake, if he starts this season, he's got another year of eligibility, Mitch. This isn't a case where you've got two guys with the same amount of time left at BYU. One guy is leaving at the end of the season regardless. The other guy could roll it back. And ideally, in a perfect world, you play the younger guy if he's earned it so that he can build upon that into his senior year.
I agree with that. And it would create job security, you would think, for Roderick and Kalani if Retzlaff had success. Because then you go into an offseason potentially this winter and you feel like, okay, you got your QB1. You can build on this and maybe level up again in year 3 in the Big 12. But there's a long way between now and then. And you just hope that they stay healthy and they can put their best versions of themselves out on the field and they can avoid the catastrophic mistakes. That was a big thing for Jake. was those mistakes he had. I mean, that Oklahoma pick will live in BYU infamy. It will be remembered for all the wrong reasons because it cost BYU the game. And that was think about the view of this season if you win that Oklahoma game. I do believe, in a weird way, that going 5-7 was maybe better long term for this program, but still, you would have rather had a win over Oklahoma and gone to a bowl game. Still, BYU is got to sort itself out with that quarterback situation, and we'll find out who that quarterback is officially from BYU's side coming up this Saturday. 6 o'clock kick, BYU and Southern Illinois. Cougar Nation brought to you by Central Bank. Central Bank CB Vault, Help Center for Startups and Entrepreneurs. Visit cbutah.com. Taking our final timeout, we'll get to more of your calls and texts and our predictions for BYU Southern Illinois next here on Cougar Nation.
Be ready for BYU Game Day. Download the KSL News Radio app to stream BYU games, plus breaking news during the week. That's the app for KSL News Radio.
The final segment, Cougar Nation Season 2 debut, sponsored by Central Bank. We're taking your calls, 801-575-8255. Who should be the starting quarterback? Edis from Spanish Fork, you want to chime in on this raging quarterback debate. Who should it be?
Absolutely. I don't have one selection. Either quarterback will work out well, I think, from what I've heard from you guys during this. But I really wanted to chime in, as I think we need to make sure that we're making the right play calls. I think A-Rod needs to really look for the talent for each one of these quarterbacks. Doesn't matter if it's running, passing, it doesn't matter. We've a lot of not so great calls from our coordinator, and I think we really need somebody that will use the talent that he has and use each quarterback wisely. And I think and you guys already stated it before, that play call in Oklahoma at the goal line, you run it down the throat. You had 20 yards, nice, beautiful 20-yard run, and then you give an RPO, absolutely not to a rookie. You let him run it in and get the touchdown and get the win.
Good call, and it's a fair point because whoever it is, Aaron Roderick needs a bounce-back year. I think you touched on this earlier, Mitch. This offense, statistically speaking, has been in decline the last 4 years, and that is with 2 of those 4 years, Jaron Hall and Puka Nacua and Chris Brooks looks like he's going to make the Miami Dolphins roster. And there's so many NFL players on those teams, and yet they didn't achieve the heights of that 2020 team. Aaron Roderick needs to be dialed in, and it's important to me that he fine-tunes the game plan to whoever's going to be the starting quarterback, because he said earlier today they have a lot more in common than they don't, but they're also different players.
Yes.
And that's the job of the coordinator, to get these guys in the best position possible to succeed. And I like that call because you want to look at the quarterback so often, but sometimes, like that Oklahoma example is a great one. Make it easy.
Yep.
It doesn't need to be an RPO in the 1-yard line. Just line up, goal line, power O, hand it off. So it's a critical year for A-Rod.
One positive thing I do see emerging out of this quarterback battle is that both players feel like they are well liked in that locker room. Bohannon especially, Retzlaff too. I feel like they've carried themselves as leaders of the program. Both were named co-captains today. 4 captains in total named for BYU: Tyler Batty, Chase Roberts, Connor Pay, Jacob Robinson. It was nice to see BYU cut that in half. Last year they had 8 captains, and you're thinking, let's just name all 22 at that point. They cut that in half, trimmed it down to 4, which I like to see. But I think that's a positive piece, because you just do wonder if it creates a divide. And the coaches have downplayed that thought, that this team is unified no matter who the quarterback is. But you got to think that if there's some adversity that faces someone, a quarterback, that maybe the locker room's going to be like, well, let's go with this guy. Let's move on. Let's go with this guy. This is our guy. So you just hope that those sort of things don't happen, and this group is strong enough. BYU has faced a lot of adversity, self-inflicted. 2 straight years where they've had, losing streaks of 4 games or more. Can they respond quicker to adversity this year? That's going to be a challenge for BYU because this schedule is going to be tough. Do they have the quarterbacks, or do they have just the overall roster that can withstand adversity and bounce back quick? Because losses are going to happen, but don't let a surprise loss turn into 3, turn into 4. That's something that BYU's got to respond better this year because past couple years they have struggled on that front. BYU, Southern Illinois, this Saturday, 6 o'clock kick. You can chime in on your thoughts on the quarterback if you want to get in before the top of the hour, 801-575-8255. Your thoughts on this matchup and the season ahead for BYU in 2024.
It's a good test because Southern Illinois is, you look at it, just the label FCS, you would say, not a great football team. This is a pretty good football team. It's a team you should beat by double digits, but this isn't going to be a team that isn't capable of testing you in some regards. And I think also, Mitch, it's really important to set the tone regardless of the opponent. Kalani touched on that earlier today, the importance of winning games in Provo.
They're coming here and they're trying to take a win from us. We have to defend Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and our players understand it's nothing personal, but we have goals and plans too.
It starts this week, and there's so many important home games coming. Kansas State is not that far away. That's a team that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have them picked to be in the playoff later this year. You get them at home. So you got to defend Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and it all starts this week because last year you started at home. There was a lot of excitement. You had Keaton Slovis, an NFL prospect, and at the end of that game, I think a lot of people were sad and a lot of people were discouraged because you had a certain expectation with it being Sam Houston. Now it's the same situation on Saturday. Can't win this one 14-0.
No.
That's technically defending Lavelle Edwards Stadium, but let's put up some points and let's get the season started off right.
I think back to that Sam Houston game, Portland State in 2017. Both those games, Kalani Sitake said something to the effect in post games. I have to remind the guys that we won. I'm telling you, this is a game where everyone's going to expect you win. You got to win with a little style because if you just win 20-14, I don't think Cougar Nation's going to feel great about that. I don't think they're going to almost feel like this could be a long season if they win, say, 42-14. I'll be like, okay, that's a proof of concept that this offense is working or it's turned a corner. This group can do something good and be effective. I love the point about play calling because there were times last season where, it's 3rd and 5 or the personnel that's in a certain 3rd and short situation. Just BYU has to be smart at managing their timeouts, avoiding the administrative penalties, and making wise decisions because the margins are so thin. You can't have decisions where you're calling a timeout back-to-back plays. You can't do that. That's not allowed. That happened last year at Texas. Or what was it, coming out of a halftime break? I think it was Sam Houston, game 1, and you're calling a timeout out of the halftime break. How does that happen? You have to be efficient. You have to be organized. This whole operation has to be on point, and do not beat yourselves when the margins are so thin in these games because so many of these contests this year are going to be 50-50 ball games. In a game like this week where you are a sizable favorite, you've got to capitalize, you've got to take care of business and execute at a high level, and we got to see it this Saturday.
What's your record prediction for this season, Mitch?
I'm going to be optimistic, and I'm going to say 6-6. And look, I think BYU can exceed that even too. We see in the Big 12 teams that we think are going to be good.
Last year,
they go back to 4 wins or 5 wins. So it can happen. This is a wacky league that can do a lot of different things. I'm going to say 6, though. I think BYU's got enough on their depth in the defense. I think the defense is going to be much improved this year. BYU goes 6-6. What about you?
I'm still at 5-7, and I'm willing to change that because there's one home game in the middle of the year that is a true toss-up. I think Arizona could be had in the middle of the season, but as of right now, I just don't feel great about picking any of these upsets. I think they could beat SMU after what we saw last week. To me, they're trending down. There was talk about them being a competitor in the ACC with the transfer portal class they brought in. I don't see that. I think that's a winnable game in week 2, but the meat of the schedule is so tough. Hey, if they win 40-14, I might be willing to pick an upset, but just based off what we know today, I just have a hard time seeing those 6 wins, Mitch.
It's going to be a week-by-week journey. You don't feel completely comfortable until, about 5 or so games, and we get a consistent body of work every single week from certain players, the quarterback, the running back, the offensive line. You just got to, every single week, it's got to be consistent. You can't have these ups and downs. BYU has got to put out a consistent product each and every week, and they need some stars to emerge too. That's going to be key for BYU because I think the second and third units are better than years past, but I think the top 22, there's some room to grow there and really establish those star players. Tyler Batty's that, Jacob Robinson's that, but who are going to be those other stars for BYU? And it begins on Saturday, 6 o'clock kick, the Cougars and the Salukis.
Great debut of Cougar Nation. We'll see you next week. So for Mitch Harper, our producers, Nate Slack, this edition of Cougar Nation was sponsored by Central Bank.